Hello, everyone. Okay, some people made it known that they did not plan to waste time and watch Trump's State of the Union address last night. Last night's speech is the longest State of the Union address in history. It clocked in at 1 hour 48 minutes. I watch the speech every year, so it was not a waste of my time. A couple of things I noticed. When he was on his way to the podium, he has to pass by the Supreme Court judges, and Trump ignored any judge that was there who voted that the tariffs were unconstitutional without the approval of Congress. So, as usual, Trump gets mad when he does not get his way. Wah, wah, wah. A second thing I noticed is there was no mention of Epstein's victims. I heard the Democrats shout and booed during the speech, but I was waiting to hear something from someone, and I heard nothing. Not from Trump, not from the Democrats. Um, but if I was in the room, I would have said something. Um, a third observation that I noticed is that Trump invited some guests to uh, to the address, and basically everyone that he honored was not black, which is quite not surprising there. But anyway, a bunch of websites fact checked Trump's speech. To make this post, I am using fact checks on the NPR website. Now, here's the thing, every time I make a comment about Trump on my social media platforms, I get attacked by Trump supporters. And so I'm not going to sit here and say that the address is filled with lies, okay? I am giving you a an impartial assessment of what Trump said last night. Okay. And at this point, I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. Okay. It is up to you as to what you think of Donald Trump and what you're going to do come November of this year, whether you're going to continue voting Republican or you're going to vote Democrat this November. All right, so I'm not going to go over everything, but I'm going to keep this video as short as possible. All right, so I'm only mentioning 9 things, and that's it. Okay. Number one, Trump said in his speech, "We have the strongest and most secure border in American history." That is partially true. The Mexican US border have seen less migrant crossing. However, I noticed that no one is talking about the Canadian US border, not Trump, not the fact checkers. So, yeah, partially true. Number two, Trump said when Biden was president, murderers and ex convicts immigrated to the US. According to the fact checkers, there is no proof. NPR wrote, and I quote, extensive research shows both documented and undocumented immigrants are less likely to commit crimes than citizens, and 74% of people in immigration detention centers this month have no criminal convictions. End quote. Number three, Trump said the stock market set an all time record, boosting pensions, 401ks, and retirement for millions of Americans. Based on what I am reading, that is true. The Jones is up, the S&P 500 index is up, but the fact checkers said the following, quote, "It is important to remember stock ownership is very concentrated. The richest 10% of families own 87% of stock market wealth, while half of Americans own little to no stock." End quote. I don't own any stock. So there you go. Number four, and this has to do with job growth. Trump said more Americans are working today than any other time in history. That is not true. I repeat, that is not true. 300,000 black women lost their jobs last year, okay, according to reports that came out in November or December. And according to the fact checkers, U.S. employers added 1.4 million jobs to the economy during Biden's last year in office. Last year, during Trump's first year, how many jobs were added? 181,000. 181,000. Number 5. Trump said, I urge Congress to pass the largest tax cuts in history. That is true, but according to the fact checkers, there are tax breaks on tips, overtime pay, and Social Security benefits. So some people will see a higher take-home pay in 2026. The same bill also cut Medicaid and food stamps. Now, I used to work at a welfare office years ago. Undocumented immigrants are not eligible for food stamps. That's the law. So if you are a citizen and you rely on food stamps, the bill will take money out of your pocket. And keep in mind, folks, about 35% of food stamp recipients are white. According to the fact checkers, and I quote, the bulk of tax savings will go to the wealthy. The middle class will see an extra $500 to $1,000 this year. For families making less than $55,000 per year, the loss of government benefits will likely outweigh any tax savings, leaving them worse off. End quote. Number 6, Trump said tariffs paid for by foreign countries will replace the modern day system of income tax. Not true. Tariffs are paid for by American companies, and they figured out how to pass the cost down to buyers and consumers. That's why certain grocery items went up during Trump's first year. Number 7, Trump said gas prices are low. Well, that depends on what you consider to be low gas price. The national average is $2.92 per gallon. If you are paying less than that, then in my opinion, you are buying cheap gas. Number 8, Trump said voter fraud is rampant. Not true. A lot of citizens do not vote. So what makes you think that immigrants vote? When you do vote, you create a paper trail. So according to the fact checkers, immigrants do not vote because they do not want to risk being imprisoned or being deported. Last but not least, number 9, Trump said, I ended 8 wars. And he's been saying this over and over and over again. Blah, blah, blah. Fact checkers determined that that was an over-exaggeration. Okay, and this is probably the worst exaggeration of them all. Okay, so let me just read to you what I read based on research. The U.S. brokered a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. However, the fighting has continued and Palestinians continue to lose lives. The U.S. did broker a peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan. The U.S. brokered a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, but the U.S. is threatening to go to war with Iran, which proves that Trump does not deserve the Nobel Peace Prize that he wants so bad. Okay, he says he doesn't care, but he does care, or else he wouldn't mention it in the media. He wants the Nobel Peace Prize. He does not deserve it. There was a ceasefire created between India and Pakistan, but India never gave the U.S. credit for it. There was a ceasefire between Cambodia and Thailand in July of last year, but it ended in November, so the fighting continues. There was a peace treaty between the Congo and Rwanda, but fighting continued afterwards. Next is Serbia and Kosovo. They created an economic agreement in 2020, but they never signed a peace treaty. So they're still not getting along. Next is Egypt and Ethiopia. They have a disagreement, but they never participated in military combat. So it never got that bad. So if there is no war, what is Trump talking about? Because there is a definition of war. War is considered to be a military combat. All right, so then there is the war between Russia and Ukraine, and that is still going on. So the Democratic response last night asked a valid question. Is the president working for you? If you are in the top 10% financially, then yes. If not, nope. And from where I am sitting, it is very hard to get rich. So that is why rich Americans will continue to vote for the Republican Party. And that's why they voted for Trump.